Excellencies, dear delegates, welcome to this side event, to the 57th session of the Human Rights Council. We would like to start by thanking the UN Special Rapporteur on the human rights to safe drinking water and sanitation, Dr. Pedro Arroyo Agudo, for bringing us together this afternoon to reflect on the thematic report that he presented this week to the Council, entitled Water and the Economy Nexus, Managing Water for Productive Uses from a Human Rights Perspective. The Special Rapporteur side event is co-convened with the permanent missions of Spain and Germany. Spain and Germany support the mandate of the Special Rapporteur and the core group on this issue. The event is also co-convened with the End Water Poverty Coalition, the International Service for Human Rights, and the Geneva Environment Network. I am Diana Rizzolio, the coordinator of the UNEP-led Geneva Environment Network, and I will have the pleasure to moderate this session. I will also be introducing the speakers as I give them the floor. We are joined this morning by leading experts and diplomats actively engaged on water and human rights issues to discuss the Special Rapporteur's latest report. To formally welcome you, I invite Her Excellency Ambassador Katharina Stasch, the permanent representative of Germany to the United Nations in Geneva, to deliver open remarks. Dr. Stasch, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Excellencies, dear colleagues, dear Special Rapporteur, dear colleagues on the podium. A very warm welcome to this side event. And it is my honor actually to be here and sit with you on the podium. And when coming here, I thought, well, water is really at the heart of all life. Without water, there wouldn't be human life. Without water, there wouldn't be animals. Without water, there wouldn't be plants. And certainly, safe drinking water and sanitation is a human right, and I am proud and honored that my own country, Germany, together with Spain, has been contributing, has been leading the long process that has enshrined the human rights of safe drinking water and sanitation here in Geneva in the Human Rights Council, but also in the General Assembly in New York. And I know that many of you have contributed, so thank you very much for that. So, dear colleagues, as I said, none of us would be here without water. Probably this morning you brushed your teeth with water. You had your first cup of tea with water. You put on your clothes, probably at some point washed, with water. We just had lunch. Maybe you had some nice vegetables grown with water. And even here the lights, the electricity maybe stems from some hydro energy, some power plants. And we all have our mobiles here, probably also produced at some point with water. So water really is the essence of so many things, but it's also clear that some of these uses are competing with each other. Water that has been used in an industrial production will be very likely to carry pollution and is absolutely unfit for consumption. Water invested in food production becomes unavailable to produce electricity. And with all these potential buyers, the financial price of water might increase to a point where fulfilling the human rights to safe drinking water and sanitation turns into an unaffordable dream of luxury for some. So how can we find responsible, sustainable, human rights-based answers to these challenges? How can we make sure that the realization of the right to drinking water does not collide with the needs for food production or takes too much water from the ecosystem? How can we make sure that businesses have enough water for production but are being held accountable to protect the environment and not to contribute to price increases that make drinking water unaffordable? So I am very thankful to our Special Rapporteur for his two latest reports that give us some insight into how these challenges can be addressed. And I'm equally thankful for all the guests here on the podium, which will share their experience from around the world here with us today on how to keep water affordable for all, to protect the environment and make sure that the essence of life is protected for all of us. I thank you.
Thank you, Excellency, for welcoming us all here. The Special Rapporteur on the human rights to safe drinking water and sanitation will now be setting the context of our discussion, providing our audience with the overview of the report that he presented yesterday and the strong messages he addressed to the Council on the need to consider and manage aquatic ecosystems and the water we extract from them in the public domain as commons, accessible to all but not appropriable by anyone. Dr. Pedro Arrojo Agudo, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Well, first of all, thank you to the organizers, the social organizations. Without you, it would not be possible, this. And thank you, of course, in particular to Spain and Germany, as every year, for promoting this side event and for your support for the mandate, continual. I would like also to congratulate Spain and Germany in particular for the resolution they promote every year on water and sanitation. And for the progress made with the new directive on drinking water in the EU, in the European Union, and for the step taken, by the way, by Spain, by transposing this directive and explicitly recognizing the human right to drinking water, establishing the vital minimum for its fulfillment at 100 liters per person and per day. It's an example for the whole world. Thank you also for the things you are asking in the resolution that is in the way to be approved. I hope it will be done. When we talk about water and economics, as professor in economics, I usually recommend reflecting on the phrase, as you know, as yesterday I said, of the Spanish poet Antonio Machado, when he said, "All fools confuse value and price," as well as on the distinction made by Aristotle between the concept of economics and chrematistics. Economics, he said, is the art of administrating household goods, while crematistic manages the goods that are bought and sold on the market. Legitimate both, but making the difference. Well, if we reflect on the values at stake in water management, we will see that the most important ones are not exchangeable for money. As I said yesterday in plenary, as an example, what value would you assign, each one of you, would you assign in euros, for instance, to the water needed to safeguard the health of your families? Water has multiple uses, and in particular, it enables productive processes of great economic projection. But first and foremost, water sustains life on this planet and is the key to the territorial settlement of peoples, as well as to social cohesion and coexistence in human societies. It is therefore vital to manage water, aquatic ecosystem, and the water cycle even, fairly and sustainably as common goods and natural heritage. Recognizing water and aquatic ecosystems as common goods, as commons, implies involving the communities concerned. In Europe, it's very clear in the Water Framework Directive, participation, proactive participation is essential. However, given the complexity of the values to be managed in today's society, such as, for example, I don't know, ensuring the sustainability of large basins, it is essential that states take responsibility and assume the public domain of water and aquatic ecosystems. But this is very important, remembering that it is a matter of managing common goods, which requires non-profit governance, nested at various levels, at local level, at basin level, even at transboundary level. Governance that ensures transparency, public participation, and accountability, while respecting the rights and responsibilities of the respective communities. Base it on the application of the principle of subsidiarity. It's familiar also in the European Union. So it's possible, we can do it. But it is not enough to guarantee public domain over water. I love the slogan used by the Italian social movements in the referendum they had for the legal recognition of the human rights in Italy to water and sanitation in their country. They said, it is written water, but it reads democracy. This is nice and true. Finally, I would like to take this opportunity to ask the states, so many states, thank you very much, Excellencies, for your attention. To ask the states present here, and particularly Spain and Germany, as well as social movements, to start now, right now, to prepare the 2026 Water Conference. Please, let's go on this task in order to overcome the shortcomings of the 2023 conference. Opening effective spaces for participation of the rights holders. It's not enough stakeholders, it's okay stakeholders, not enough. Rights holders and the municipal and community authorities that are usually responsible in charge for water and sanitation services. And they were not in New York last time. And ensuring that the sessions are chaired by a human right-based approach. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Pedro Ario Agudo. Now that you have provided us the context for the discussion with some strong messages and enthusiasm, let's open a discussion on the findings and recommendations of your report. We are joined, as I mentioned earlier, by leading experts to reflect on these messages. And we will need to be strict with time because, as you know, these side events we only have 55 minutes to run these side events. So we'll start the reflections with Mr. Todd Hovland, who is the Chief of the Development and Economics and Social Rights Branch at the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights. Mr. Hovland, you have been advocating for a human rights economy that puts human rights back in the policy equation to ensure all benefit from the economy. So let's hear your reflections on the Special Rapporteur report.
Thank you very much. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, colleagues, I too would like to express my thanks to the permanent missions of Germany and Spain, the Special Rapporteur on the human rights to safe drinking water and sanitation, the Geneva Environmental Network, the International Service for Human Rights, and End Water Poverty for organizing this event. But more so, for taking a perspective that human rights is essential to guide policies, all policies, including economic policies. The Special Rapporteur's report, Water and Economy Nexus, Managing Water for Productive Uses from a Human Rights Perspective, is timely and relevant, given that for too long, economic policymaking has been siloed from human rights norms and standards. For decades, mainstream economic thinking has been dominated by approaches that have weakened the capacity and incentive of the state to deliver on human rights obligations to people. What I'm saying here is that the neoclassical approach to economics, a school of thought, actually became more important than the rule of law, including human rights. Why is that? Because in the neoclassical school of thought, they indicated that the economy and people would benefit more by having no interference from government in the economy. But what we fail to realize is that the economy touches all aspects of our lives. And it's important to use human rights guardrails to limit the power of certain entities. A human rights economy recognizes economic, social, and cultural rights, including the rights to water and sanitation, as part of the rule of law, not mere aspirations. The market logic of solely maximizing return on investment and management of water as a commodity does not respect human rights nor the Sustainable Development Goals, and consequently fails to deliver for people and planet. Again, people and their participation is essential for decision-making. We have a right to participate in all decisions that impact us. Instead of considering water primarily as an economic good, water should be managed as a human right to which all people are entitled without discrimination, regardless of people's ability to pay, even in times of water scarcity. The affordability of water and sanitation must be ensured. It is a policy choice. It is a policy choice to create economies that uphold human rights and protect our environment. Creating a human rights economy means using human rights obligations to guide budget decisions and to invest sufficiently in water and sanitation services, public education, health, and other rights for everyone. Our office is committed to work with all states, UN agencies, social movements, to ensure the alignment of economic policies with human rights in order to resume progress on the SDGs and to leave no one behind, including on access to water and sanitation. I thank you.
Thank you very much. We will now continue our reflections with voices from the field. I will start by giving the floor to M.M. Okon, a women's rights advocate and development practitioner in Nigeria. MN is the founder and executive director of Kebech Kache Women Development and Resource Center, which is a non-profit organization that works for the promotion of women's rights and environmental justice in the Niger Delta region. Ms. Okon, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Your Excellencies, development workers, human rights activists. I appreciate the opportunity to be here to share on the issue of water and the need for water justice, because we are talking about water as being very important to life. But a great percentage of people, particularly community people, do not have access to water. I come from Nigeria. I live and work in the Niger Delta region. And I want to share on the consequences of the extractive activities, particularly oil and gas extraction, as it impacts on access to clean water in the Niger Delta. In 2008, the United Nations Environment Programme conducted an assessment of the environment in Ogoniland. Ogoniland is part of the indigenous people in the Niger Delta. Part of the findings of that assessment said that both underground water and surface water in Ogoniland contains benzene, a poisonous substance more than 900 times above World Health Organization permissible level. That is Ogoniland. The entire Niger Delta is impacted by oil and gas extraction. So the situation in the Niger Delta is that we do not have access to clean drinking water. Why? Because the extractive activities spill crude oil into rivers, into creeks, into streams. So people do not have access to water because there are no pipe-borne water. So when both underground and surface water is polluted, what do we have to drink? Even the rainwater is polluted because we experience acid rain in the Niger Delta. as a result of over 6 decades of flaring toxic gases into the atmosphere. Gas flares contribute to global warming, which causes climate change. So the Niger Delta is at the front line of climate change manifestations. We do not have access to water. I'm here with 2 research reports that indicates that the entire Niger Delta, there is no access to clean drinking water. Where you have clean water is where you have the major oil operations in their camps because they treat their water. So them and their staff have clean drinking water, but the communities that is hosting the facilities do not have access to clean drinking water. Community members, part of the findings of this assessment, community members have hydrocarbon in their blood, possibly including myself, because of drinking polluted water, because of inhaling polluted air, and because of eating polluted food, because we use water to cook. The aquatic life, seafood, contains hydrocarbon, so we eat polluted fish. You practically will taste crude oil when you're eating seafood. So it's a big problem. The United Nations put life expectancy in the Niger Delta at below 45 years. So when we talk about water sustaining life, it becomes questionable when it has to do with the Niger Delta and other communities and countries in the global south. So it is important for us to consider issues of water justice when we are discussing issues of water, and for us also to achieve sustainable development goals. The issue of water is very important. It is important to hold the corporations accountable for destroying the sources of water in the communities where they operate in, and not doing anything to address issues of polluted water. I have a specific incident. This report, the family of Prince Will Chukere discovered in 2016 that their local well was filled with crude oil instead of water. And they reported to the company, reported to community leaders. By the time we got to know about this incident in 2021, you can imagine the number of years. And we took this case to National Human Rights Commission, and we also tried to file a suit at the multi-door court. The multi-door court dismissed the issue that Kebet Kasema organization has no problem with Shell, that is the corporation responsible for that pollution. We conducted an assessment of the compound and the community and realized that the entire area is polluted and that there were other 5 sites within that community with the same problem. Nothing has been done till date. What the company did was to try to sink a borehole for the family, but they realized that the entire area is polluted because the water that was produced by the borehole is also polluted and contains crude oil. So in this kind of instance, how can that family get water justice? The family is asking to be relocated. The family is asking for medical treatment. The family is asking for compensation. But right now, nothing has been done for that family. What we are demanding is that there is need to hold corporations accountable. There is need to hold the federal government accountable. There is need for the United Nations to ensure that oil corporations comply to the UN guiding principles on business and human rights, to remediate the environment in the Niger Delta, to remediate the environment wherever they operate. They should clean up the mess, the damage that has been caused by their activities. I will round up by saying that right now in the Niger Delta, the oil majors are planning to divest In fact, some of them have divested. How are they divesting? They are selling off their assets onshore, and they are planning to move offshore. Moving offshore means that community members and activists will no longer be able to have access to them to demand accountability. This should not be allowed. I use this opportunity to appeal to the Special Rapporteur and the Human Rights Council that these oil corporations should be held accountable. And I want to say that before I close, that many years of drinking polluted water means all of us are just walking corpses because people are dropping dead, and that polluted water is impacting on women's health. Young women are experiencing early menopause. Women are having fertility issues. And tradition in Africa, you know what it means for a woman to be married and not be able to conceive. That linkages should be created between extractive activity, consequences of extractive activity, and women's health. I thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to be here. There are several other women activists that would have been here, but it is not easy having access, having the required papers to attend such forums like this. So as I speak on behalf of myself, on behalf of my organization, and on behalf of many other community members and activists that did not have the opportunity to attend this forum.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Sharing with us the struggles that we are facing in the Niger Delta that are important for the discussion we are having here. We are now joined by another voice much more closer to our region. Florestan Groult is the Vice President in charge of the Commission for Users and the Rights to Water of Eau Publique du Grand Lyon. The Special Rapporteur has mentioned in his report experiences from your region, so let's hear your reflections.
Thank you very much. I apologize. I am going to make it in French, but I think that we have a presentation in English. Madame l'ambassadeur l'a dit, l'eau, c'est la vie. Le rappeler, c'est dire que lorsqu'on se saisit de la question de l'eau, autour duquel se sont toujours construites les communautés humaines, on saisit d'une manière de faire société et de faire collectif. Et c'est bien avec cet état d'esprit-là que, en 2020, la métropole de Lyon a fait le choix de revenir dans un mode de gestion publique avec une ambition qui était... next, please. Qui était de, en plus de changer de mode de gestion, refonder une vision du service public qui est un préalable absolument essentiel pour pouvoir garantir l'effectivité du droit à l'eau. Il s'agissait de dépasser une vision où on regarde que la dimension technique ou l'exploitation de la gestion d'un réseau, la gestion économique d'un réseau, pour faire de la régie publique notre instrument collectif et démocratique pour garantir l'effectivité d'un droit à l'eau défini démocratiquement. Notre situation est parmi une diversité de contextes, mais elle prouve que pour une collectivité de 1,4 million d'habitants, c'est possible. On n'est pas dans une utopie. Une régie publique qui place l'approche par les droits humains, la participation habitante et la justice sociale pour une grande métropole de 1,4 million d'habitants est possible. Vous avez là à l'écran les 4 approches et les 4 objectifs avec lesquels nous avons repris ce service public de l'eau en gestion publique. D'abord avec une priorité aux droits humains pour toutes et tous. Ensuite, une priorité sur la préservation de la ressource. Ensuite, sur préparer le futur. Et très important, le fait d'impliquer les usagers, les premiers concernés dans l'ensemble du processus de décision, y compris dans le conseil d'administration, dans le board de la régie publique, avec une voix décisionnaire. So you have here a panorama, an overview of our public water company. Is to say it's a very large metropole and urban area. Notice that there is 25,000 homeless people and 120,000 in water vulnerability. Now I am going to focus on two aspects of our Régie publique, how we involving users. At the first time, in 2020, we make a large sensibilisation pour impliquer plus de 8000 participants pendant 4 mois à sensibiliser avec un monde qui pourrait avoir moins d'eau dans le futur. Et à partir de cette large sensibilisation, on a construit une assemblée des usagers qui compte 120 membres d'associations, d'organisations non gouvernementales, de partenaires économiques ou de citoyens qui frappent à la porte, parce que cette assemblée, elle est toujours ouverte. Et on faisait 12 sessions par an avec eux, 120 heures de travail. Et dans cette assemblée, on a choisi 4 représentants usagers qui siègent avec nous dans le cockpit de pilotage, vraiment dans l'organe de pilotage de la régie, où il y a aussi 2 employés qui sont les représentants des employés et 14 élus de la métropole, dont 4 de notre opposition politique. C'est dire que ces 20 personnes, elles conduisent au quotidien le service public de l'eau dans l'intérêt général. Puisque avant, je suis obligé de le dire, l'organe de pilotage, c'était les commerciaux ou les directeurs de la compagnie privée. Là, on s'assure avec les personnes qui font vivre le service, les citoyens et les élus, d'être dans une communauté d'intérêt qui pense toujours le long terme et qui pense toujours le bien commun en premier. Peut-être revenir juste en arrière. L'Assemblée des usagers, on l'a aussi mobilisée pour définir avec nous certains espaces de la régie, certaines pièces structurantes, comme la charte des usagers, la définition du droit à l'eau, parce qu'on s'est appuyé sur les travaux du rapporteur pour faire notre propre définition sur la métropole de Lyon, la gouvernance, c'est-à-dire qu'on a demandé aux usagers la manière dont ils voulaient être représentés au CA, et bien sûr la tarification. Et je vais faire 2 petits focus pour finir sur notre définition du droit à l'eau et sur la tarification. Yes. One more, yeah, please. After 6 months' work, the Assembly of Users says that on Métropole de Lyon, our human right to water is one democratic act because we choose in common. 2 universal rights, it says that, évidemment, obviously, tout le monde, everyone is a right holder, but ça dit aussi que on a une responsabilité, nous, opérateurs publics de l'eau, pour les gens qui ont un robinet chez eux, mais aussi pour ceux qui n'ont pas de robinet chez eux, pour ceux qui sont sur l'espace public, qui sont dans des logements informels, qui sont dans des campements. On souhaite prendre la responsabilité de leur accorder le droit à l'eau et on l'a fait en déployant automatiquement, pour n'importe quelle situation, des rampes d'eau, parce que, et c'est le principe numéro 3, on ne négocie pas avec les droits humains. Une société qui négocie avec les droits humains, qui assèche un individu ou des populations, quel que soit l'enjeu, c'est une faillite morale. Et malheureusement, les travaux des rapporteurs nous le montrent bien, il y a parfois encore, et même souvent, des endroits où on négocie les droits humains, et pas plus tard que l'année dernière, à Calais, malheureusement, je dois le dire, notre police a percé des bidons de camps de réfugiés pour les faire partir. Ça veut dire se rappeler qu'on a asséché des human beings, des individus, et que finalement c'est une faute morale, et c'est impensable, et il faut chaque fois s'en souvenir. Ensuite, on a voulu rappeler qu'il fallait qu'on cesse de toujours nous amener les pansements, mais trouver des mécanismes sociaux qui préviennent la pauvreté en amont, c'est-à-dire qui ne créent pas de vulnérabilité, d'inégalité ou de pauvreté. Parce que trop souvent, on accepte un système qui crée des inégalités pour venir ensuite les corriger. Nous, on pense qu'en premier lieu, il faut trouver des mécanismes sociaux qui évitent de créer cette pauvreté, ces inégalités, parce que quand on vient les corriger, c'est toujours un moment où on va faire de la stigmatisation ou de la mise sous dépendance. Et c'est pas ça l'ambition de la devise de la République française, qui est l'égalité, donc la possibilité pour chacun d'être libre dans ses choix. Et enfin, le rapporteur de l'eau l'a dit, nous on considère qu'un mètre cube n'est plus égal à un mètre cube selon l'usage social qu'on en fait. C'est pas pareil d'utiliser 1 litre pour remplir sa piscine que d'utiliser 1 litre d'eau pour boire, que d'utiliser 1 litre d'eau pour faire du Coca-Cola. Et pardon, je ne sais pas si j'ai le droit de dire ça. Mais ça, c'est important que ça se traduise et on l'a traduit notamment dans la tarification et j'en finis avec ça. Dans la tarification qu'on a fait, après un processus inédit, parce qu'on l'a fait avec notre Assemblée des usagers, 6 séances de 4 heures avec des experts, les services techniques, les associations d'usagers et les élus. On a appris en commun et on a affirmé que déjà on allait faire une tarification pour les besoins vitaux et les besoins essentiels d'un côté et une tarification pour les activités économiques et les besoins professionnels de l'autre, parce que pas la même valeur sociale. L'une, c'est pour les besoins vitaux et l'autre, c'est pour les activités économiques. Et pour les besoins domestiques, on a fait 3 tranches. Une tranche de 0 à 12 mètres cubes qui est gratuite parce que accès universel, besoins vitaux, extrêmement vitaux. Ensuite, de 12 à 180 mètres cubes, une tranche pour les besoins courants. Et au-dessus de 180 mètres cubes, on double le prix parce qu'on envoie un message comme quoi il faut un petit peu de sobriété. Par contre, je tiens à dire que la tranche entre 12 et 180 mètres cubes, ça assure que quelle que soit la composition familiale, les gens pourront payer l'eau avec le tarif bas. Mais c'est pas tout. Et ça, c'est très important, c'est une vraie grande fierté. On a mis un bouclier, c'est-à-dire que pour toutes les familles dont la facture d'eau représente plus de 3% de leurs revenus, on fait un plafond. On ne va pas au-dessus. Et ça veut dire que, parce que 3%, c'est le taux au-delà duquel il y a des phénomènes de privation. Donc on s'assure que sur notre métropole de Lyon, il n'y a plus personne qui sera dans une situation de se priver sur ses besoins essentiels en eau. Et ça, c'est une de nos plus grandes victoires. C'est 4 millions d'euros par an qu'on va donner sous forme d'aide préventive, sans dossier à faire, sans stigmatisation, sans devoir lever la main et dire « est-ce que je peux avoir une aide sur mes besoins essentiels ?» Et donc ça, on en est vraiment très fiers. Et finir en disant que pour les entreprises, parce qu'on sait qu'on a des activités d'entreprise, on a une autre progressivité. La première tranche, c'est la tranche moyenne des domestiques. Et plus on augmente en termes de consommation, plus on paye cher. J'attire l'attention sur le fait que 80%, 85% de nos entreprises vont rester dans un tarif complètement soutenable et acceptable. Il y a 92 très gros consommateurs qui vont avoir un tarif plus cher parce qu'ils doivent faire aussi des efforts pour préserver la ressource. Conclure en disant que voilà, on a montré 2 aspects très pratiques de la régie, mais on arrive à avoir un service public où on contribue selon ses moyens et on reçoit selon ses besoins de manière inaliénable et universelle. Et ça, c'est un idéal de faire société, c'est ce qui doit nous rassembler, faire une communauté d'usagers solidaire dans l'espace et dans le temps. La gestion publique est un préalable indispensable pour pouvoir le faire, puisque c'est ce qui permet de penser notre service public de l'eau dans la durabilité. Et donc oui, je pense qu'on peut refaire société avec la manière dont on saisit de la question de l'eau potable dans nos territoires.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for sharing the experience of the Grand Lyon and some also other examples of things that have happened in France. Our last leading voice is Sandra Métayer, who is the coordinator at Coalition O, representing here the End Water Poverty Coalition. Your coalition, Sandra, has developed a policy brief bringing voices of the network around the world. So let's hear now your reflections.
Good afternoon. Many thanks to the conveners of this event and many thanks to the Special Rapporteur for inviting us at this table. So I'm speaking on behalf of End Water Poverty, which is a global coalition. And I would like to reflect on the question of the public participation, and especially of marginalized and disadvantaged groups. So I'm here to share the messages of the Hearing the Unheard campaign that was led by End Water Poverty, where we gathered more than 100 video testimonies from community-based organizations and water rights defenders across the globe. The objective of this campaign was really to amplify the voices and the demands of grassroots organizations and water rights defenders that have remained unheard or that have been ignored or been silenced. There are some key messages emerging from all these testimonies, and we've picked 3 of them. First is the fact that participatory processes are essential to enable marginalized groups to meaningfully contribute to all decisions related to water and sanitation. And marginalized communities are right holders, has been said. They are key actors and they are not beneficiaries. Second, there is a range of accountability mechanisms already existing at local, at national levels. However, they are not working in the way that communities and water rights activists need them to. There are many difficulties coming from the testimonies, and including the one from my neighbor here, to hold states and corporations accountable for the damages to the human rights, water and sanitation. Third message is that in their testimonies, many marginalized groups called for states to support self-supply and greater community involvement in the management of water resources and in the management of water and sanitation services. So this is not about states abdicating their responsibility for realizing the human rights to water and sanitation. It's about seeing what communities are doing for themselves, recognizing their efforts and the energy they have developed to build solutions. So from this campaign, we produced a policy brief whose title is Leave No One Behind, with key recommendations, and here are some key recommendations for states. First is reviewing and updating water and sanitation policies, budget plans to include targeted positive measures to ensure that marginalized groups have equal enjoyment of the human rights to water and sanitation. And also to make sure that the priority use of water is for life and for dignity. This implies also reviewing the financing of water and sanitation services so that the least able to afford it are financially supported through subsidies, for instance, or other financial support mechanisms. And we need public funding for that. About the data, it's important to collect, develop, and make publicly available disaggregated data on access to water and sanitation on the basis of several criteria, including sex, gender, disability, age, ethnicity, geographic location, etc. We know that marginalized groups are often missing from the data. Third message is to develop and implement inclusive participatory processes that community directly affected can meaningfully participate in and contribute to on an equal basis without fear of reprisal or persecution. Participation can take many forms, from formal to informal means, petition, protest, social audits, use of media. All of these actions should be seen as valid forms of participation. Fourth message is the importance to implement local and national accountability mechanisms, with a priority being to be responsive to communities. It implies identifying and lifting the barriers to accessing justice mechanisms for individuals and communities. And finally, provide financial, institutional, technical support to communities that are involved or would like to be involved in the management of their own water and sanitation services. And as a conclusion, I would like to say that inequalities in access to water can only be eliminated if the voices of those who are left behind are heard and are taken seriously. So listening to these testimonies bring concrete solution to that. And I encourage you to read the policy paper and watch some of the testimonies on the End Water Poverty website and YouTube channels. I thank you.
Now that we have heard testimonies and some reflections on this topic, I think we can start also hear from the floor some reactions in the room. But before I turn to the room, I know that some people already had expressed an interest in speaking. I'm turning to the Special Rapporteur. Is there any comment you would like to add here before we start the round of questions in the room? Okay, let's go. So I know I will first give the floor to the Human Rights Youth Challenge 2024 winner who is here with us. The theme of the challenge was Water as a Tool for Peace and Cooperation. And the winner is Joy Al-Harmar, a student from the American University in Beirut, Lebanon, where she studies environmental health. So Joy, the floor is yours.
Your Excellencies and delegates, my name is Joy. I'm 20 years old, born and raised in a small country in the Middle East, my home, Lebanon. First and foremost, I want to thank the Special Rapporteur, Mr. Pedro Araujo, and all his team, especially Maria Jose, for choosing me as winner of the 6th Youth Human Rights Challenge. Thank you for giving me the honor to speak of the unheard in front of this distinguished assembly. Today, as a student majoring in environmental health sciences at the American University of Beirut, I feel the urgency to speak about the importance of water, not only as a basic human right, but as a symbol of peace, emphasizing on the importance of managing integrated water resources sustainably. This is more critical than ever in the face of climate change. The global water cycle, which is deeply intertwined with the climate system, must be protected as a common heritage for all of humanity. We can no longer afford to ignore the environmental impact of our actions. In Lebanon, water scarcity is a pressing issue, although it shouldn't be, with surface water heavily exploited and groundwater already in overdraft, despite the abundant natural water supply. Water has fallen victim to commodification and exploitation for short-term gains, while the Lebanese people have to suffer the consequences of environmental degradation. Evidently, this crisis goes beyond national borders. It is a regional issue. In countries like Iraq and Syria, water infrastructure has decimated because of conflict, leaving millions of people without reliable access to clean, safe water. Water, a resource that should unify communities, is becoming a source of division and conflict due to mismanagement, neglect, and greed. For longer than we can remember, greed has been eating us alive, alarmingly so that humans are ready to self-destruct at the cost of feeding their appetite for money or power. Nowhere is this clearer than in Gaza. The recent escalation has commemorated a disturbing tactic, the use of water as a weapon of war. By targeting Gaza's water infrastructure and limiting access to clean water, more than 1.9 million people have been displaced, including almost 1 million women and children. This extends to more than 480,000 Palestinian refugees across the 12 UNRWA refugee camps in Lebanon, as well as more than 1.5 million displaced Syrian refugees and 3.9 million Lebanese people, all in which half, if not more, are women, children, and people with disabilities. This is not just a humanitarian crisis. It is an outright violation of international law and human rights. This is not just a failure of local governments. It is a failure of the global community, which allows these injustices to persist unchecked. What is most troubling is how reality is often masked by international media. Stories of suffering are downplayed or distorted, hidden behind narratives that fail to hold accountable those responsible for these human rights violations. It is crucial to raise awareness about this. Media must be independent and unbiased, offering a truthful account of the injustices occurring in our world. Water is not just an economic or political commodity. It is a human right. Yet, as the Special Rapporteur's report highlights, the management of water continues to be driven by economic interests rather than human needs. The commodification of water reflects a broader failure of governance that prioritizes profit over people. We must recognize that access to water is a matter of justice and equality, not privilege or wealth. As we look to the future, we must demand transparency, accountability, and sustainability in integrated water resource management. We need policies that recognize water as a shared resource, one for all, regardless of socioeconomic status. Governments must be held accountable for the equitable distribution of water, and communities must be empowered to manage their own resources in ways that prioritize human dignity and environmental sustainability. As I speak here today, I can only imagine how different things could be if instead of fueling hatred and wars over this precious resource, we could employ transboundary agreements showcasing how water can transform from a potential conflict point into a bridge for peace. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Alahmar. I propose that we take one or two more questions, and then we come back to the panel and close the event. I will give first the floor to the State of Palestine.
Much, and thanks for the panelists for organizing this important event, and thanks to the brave voice from our colleague from Lebanon who raised the voice of the victims who are suffering from water colonization and weaponization of water as a tool to commit an ongoing genocide. I am wondering how can we keep business as usual? And how do we feel, all of us in this room, including the panelists, that we are talking about the topic of water and the right to water? And as we speak, there is an ongoing genocide where water is a key method to committed deprivation of water. The two main questions are based on what I will not repeat what our colleague has mentioned, but UNICEF also stated that the Palestinian people now in Gaza are forced to drink highly salinated and polluted water from the sea, further contaminated by untreated wastewater. And in just the first weeks of the ongoing genocide, OCHA estimated the water consumption per person had dropped to just 3 liters, far below the international standard of 15 liters. With bottled water unavailable and desalination plants not functioning, people resorted to agriculture wells, increasing exposure to chemicals and pesticides, tragically affecting pregnant women, children, and now the death toll has reached more than 42,000 Palestinians. The question is one to the states and one to Mr. Asar. Mr. Special Rapporteur, how do you feel that after all your warnings that water weaponization and the death toll that will reach because of deprivation of water will be even more than from the Israeli bombardment itself? How do you feel after 11 months of your warning that most of the states turn deaf ears to your warning? And how some states feel, without naming, how some states feel that they are role model of the role of water, but at the same time, they are continuing their irresponsible trade of conventional arms to the Israeli occupying power that is depriving the right to life and the right to water. Because human rights are indivisible. We cannot divide the human rights. It's either you take it or leave it. How do we feel in this room as we are sitting here wearing suits, coming, lecturing about human rights, and people are being killed while we are here? Business as usual. How do we feel? Thank you.
I see one more hand. I also know that we are struggling with time, and so should I give one more floor? Should I give you the floor, Monsieur Special Rapporteur? Can maybe I give you the floor, then we close.
And so just I think I recommend, if possible, to read the report. Some of the questions that have been raised are in my precedent report last year on water as a tool for peace. in which I make this contrast in the cases where water is employed as a weapon, no? But you have all these questions considered in the report, so perhaps I will give the continue in order to be in time. And thank you so much to all the states that come here, to all the people yesterday asking for the floor, 82 countries and 30 or 40 organizations, incredible. Even there are criticism or not, just the fact to be around this topic with all of you is a great honor and a great responsibility. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Special Rapporteur. I propose that those who had their run up to the Special Rapporteur as after the closing. So now to close this event, we are turning to His Excellency Ambassador Marcos Gomez Martinez, who is the permanent representative of Spain to the United Nations here in Geneva. Excellency, you have the floor.
Thanks a lot, Madam Moderator. Let me respond briefly, yes, initially to the speeches from the floor. Unfortunately, human rights violations are a daily occurrence, and that's why we are here. We're trying to work for them to be eliminated. That's the goal. So we do take into account the overall context in the world, which is still, unfortunately, very worrying, including, of course, in Palestine. Thank you very much to all my fellow panelists here today, to the permanent representative of Germany, to the Special Rapporteur, and to the Geneva Environment Network. Katharina recalled us the importance of water in our daily life. We are living in the blue planet. It is blue for a cause, and we all are water. We're at least 70% water. So it is indeed essential for our daily life. I like very much in the presentation of the rapporteur his distinction between stakeholders and right holders. I think that the essence of his approach to water and sanitation is that they are human rights, they are not commodities, and everyone is entitled to them without discrimination. I took note of the examples of what's going on in the delta of the Niger by Yemen. Thank you very much for your very sobering remarks that underscore the need to involve communities in water management. We did have a very good example also of how citizens can take control of water management through the schemes organized by the municipality of Lyon that I think are inspiring and might provide solutions for everyone. Todd put the water and sanitation human rights in a framework of the human rights economy that the High Commissioner is promoting, and that we think is a very interesting approach that we also support, underscoring the importance of economic and social rights. We had Sandra again giving us recommendations to the participation of communities in water management. We believe it is crucial to have everyone on board so as to push the issue in the right direction. It has been clear to me after the presentations of all the panelists that human rights principles, transparency, participation and accountability must guide public interventions, ensuring that people remain at the center of water governance through the meaningful participation of those affected. This is why environmental and water defenders and the recognition of women's roles in sustainable water management are pivotal, and their empowerment is key to community development and poverty eradication. Ultimately, water governance is a matter of, as you said, democracy, not something that can be left to the invisible forces of the market alone. We as states are accountable to ensure that human rights to safe drinking water and sanitation are fulfilled, and we also bear responsibility to uphold our commitments to the 2030 agenda and maintain momentum leading up to the next UN Water Conference in 2026. We will be members of the Human Rights Council, hopefully starting next year, and you can count on us to pursue with this issue not only from a general approach, but also bearing in mind the specific situations, crisis situations that we are forced to deal with here in the Council. Thank you.
Can applaud all the voices we heard from the field and from closer to us. And the event is now closed. Thank you.